uh, I'm just reading this last 2-minute report. Yeah, this is fun. Let's talk about this right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Boston, baby, we do what you can't. Locked on number 18, Tatum and Brown, J-team, step back. We gon' wet that and slay teams. Of course, the Celtics, who else could it be? Screaming like KG with the Larry O.B. Karalis above average, assessing the team status. Best daily pod, no cap, salary matching. Clutch like Bird the DJ, keep John on replay. Prime time, dapping up the truth on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. B.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast. It's right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day, and I got you covered every day with a free, fresh podcast Monday through Friday, normally, plus bonus podcasts when they play on a weekend day, like this Saturday when they play the Houston Rockets at home. Ime Udoka comes back. I will be there. I will give you a podcast on Saturday night as well, because I got more than 5 days a week for you. So subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Watch the show on YouTube. Get into that comment section. Let me know about what you think, whatever I'm talking about. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers, you get $150 in bonus bets. Just place a $5 bet. That's it, $150 with any bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Later on, we'll talk a little bit about the games coming up. We'll have a little bit of a conversation here about some of the stuff we didn't talk about with the Indiana Pacers, but the NBA makes things worse, so much worse. I didn't want to talk about the fouls and all that stuff, but then the last 2-minute report came out, so I decided this would be a great time to get Tom Westerholm on the show. Tom, we get to talk about referees again.
I love it.
This is fun.
I love this because it lets me bust out my absolute favorite take, which is that like NBA refs are like, I know people complain about them all the time, but they might be the last basketball refs on earth. Like if you ask any lower level basketball team or, AD or AAU coach, the amount of trouble people have finding referees is crazy. Like this refereeing crisis is only going to get worse because nobody wants to be a referee. So
no one. Why would you?
Why would you want to be a referee? You got to be a psycho. You got to be crazy.
Yeah. Well, these guys want to be refs, and so some might argue that they're not great at it. But actually, okay. So this is the part where I say they are the best and the best basketball officials in the world. But
they're the only basketball officials in the world.
the last minute report, like, okay. So what gets me is the way they phrase it. So for people who didn't see it, here's the setup. Jaylen Brown, all of that stuff, they said was correct. They got it right. But after that, they made a mistake. They said, oops, we didn't call an illegal screen on Miles Turner. And also the foul call on Kristaps Porzingis was incorrect. So side note, the Celtics blew challenge earlier in the game on what was it? Was a offensive foul. It was the offensive foul
with his elbow kind of swinging around a little bit. That was a Matt Reynolds. You're pretty good at this. That was a weird challenge.
So I think the Celtics have said, like, because I did a story on this, like Matt Reynolds gives like the yes or no from the sideline. And then Joe kind of like rarely overrules him. He'll go with he'll support the player from time to time and be like, okay, Jaylen, I will support you in this and make this, make this challenge. However, side note, I think Joe Mazzulla is going to go to like Jaylen and be like, hey, you know what? We burned a challenge on based on you, and we were wrong, right? So we're not going to do that anymore in the first 3 quarters. Now, Joe has said in the first 3 quarters, we only want to challenge out of bounds calls because those are easy to see. They are often wrong, and you're not asking a referee to change a judgment call. It's just, oh, I didn't see it go off his hands or whatever, and you have a great chance at winning those. That's why their challenge record is very good.
Yeah.
Not having the challenge for the Porzingis foul would have, like, if they had it there, that should have, according to the last 2-minute report, been overturned.
Yep.
And Boston would have gotten the ball back at that point. And so I think it's fair for Joe to go to his guys and be like, I'm not going to listen to you guys because you're emotional and you can say what you got to say, but you have to understand that I listened to you. I blew it. I blew a challenge and we didn't have it at the end. And the refs you can even say it this way if you want. The refs are so bad that I have to have a challenge at the end to save us from them. And that would be the end of it. Because if they had the challenge, that who knows how this game would have gone. Would have gone to overtime. Who knows? But regardless, the fact that they said in the last 2-minute report that the contact on the head for Jaylen Brown was incidental. And it says, as the rule book, this is a direct quote, as the rule book makes clear, the mere fact that the contact occurs does not necessarily constitute a foul. Contact, which is incidental to an effort by a player to defend an opponent, reach a loose ball, or perform a normal defensive or offensive movement is not considered illegal. So, Tom, Jaylen Brown getting hit in the head while going up for a jump shot, not a foul, apparently.
I love this because what they're saying is the head is literally part of the ball in this instance, right? Because like there was contact made. I mean, like, right? Like, I don't know. Like, what? How else am I supposed to interpret this? And like,
Jaylen was joking after the game and said, the head was part of the ball, and he goes, "No, they didn't actually say that, but they're in effect saying that."
That's kind of what this says. I mean, look. I think they got it wrong. I think, and this is a weird one too, because okay, so you can make it results based, right? Like Jaylen missed the shot badly. I'm not saying he was going to make that shot for sure, but like he wasn't going to miss it enough that it looked affected. What's that?
He wasn't going to miss the shot. Jaylen Brown in that situation, I'm sorry, he's not missing a shot by that much.
That's what I'm saying. It looked affected, like it was. The shot was affected by the contact. And like that, okay, so that's thing one, right? Thing two, it's like, okay, so how much contact to the head is allowed? And because there was this whole push to try to make sure that guys didn't get hit in the head, but now we're saying like, okay, some hit in the head is fine. Even if it affects the shot. Like, okay, like at some point here, we're starting to, really get into degrees of things. I mean, look, it's the NBA just comes off looking bad here, I think, because they've, you think back to there was a much more blatant foul, right? Last year, I think a lot of people want to draw the comparison to the Lakers game last year, right? Where the Celtics blatantly fouled LeBron James. The NBA came out like groveling, apologizing, this keeps us up at night. We're so sorry. And
And
it's like that, that doesn't need to happen every time. That shouldn't have happened that time. That was weird. You could just come out and say,
that was weird.
We messed that up, guys. Our bad. And it's like, that doesn't fix anything, but at least that's some accountability. At least that's some like, we got this one wrong. And this is not that. And like, so we're left then, those of us who watch the game to either be like, okay, well, I accept this and I'm going to move on, or be like, what? Like, it's foul. Like, and I don't know. It's a little bit crazy making, because that was a very clear one, right? Contact to the head. I mean, Buddy Hield very clearly seems to have told Joe Mazzulla, like, I kind of fouled him. Like, the only people who disagree is the NBA, and they just kind of come off looking defensive here, I feel like. And then, and they've covered their tracks in this way that is very convenient, right? Where they're like, well, we didn't get the Jaylen Brown one wrong, but the one that we couldn't look at, we would have reversed the Porzingis one if we could have, but you didn't have your challenge, so then it just kind of turns into this like, really, this is more on you than it's on us. That looks worse too. So it's just a mess all around, man. I mean, I think the thing that everybody's going to have to do, and the thing that the Celtics, I'm sure, are working toward doing right now, is just kind of letting it go. There's big games coming up. There's much more important games coming up, much more important moments coming up than the end of a a tough back-to-back without, your one of your superstar players. And, it was a winnable game, but I don't know that the Celtics should necessarily feel like they deserved to win. Like, I don't think they played that great, which I'm sure we're about to get into. But yeah, I mean, I think if you're a Celtics fan and you want to feel aggrieved and frustrated, this is the game to feel aggrieved and frustrated about.
Yeah.
Because like that was a pretty bad one.
I never like talking about the officials or the officiating. And as I always say, there's a million other things that could have gone differently that would have won them this game. But this last 2 minute report, look, I'm sorry, this is what people are talking about right now, because this last 2 minute report, man, just the game is on in the background right now. I have an NBA TV on my TV in front of me, and this is the play that actually was they just showed it. He very clearly gets hit in the head. I mean, I just don't understand it. If the NBA had just come out and said it was wrong, it was the wrong interpretation, sorry, like it wouldn't have been a whole segment, that's for sure. No. I would have just been like, hey, you know what? They blew it. You own it. You move on. Right? Were they going to issue a LeBron type of apology? Like, oh no, we're so sad that we blew this. But no, that was just whatever. But you're right. We got to move on. It's over. It's done. They're not replaying anything. It's over. Forget it.
And but they did just get screwed. So we move on.
And that's it. That's it.
And I know we got to go to break, but the game's the game, right? This happened last year. The Lakers got screwed, and Celtics fans justifiably, I think, were just like, and like, you know what? The opposite is also true. Sometimes you get screwed too. So
that's how it goes. That's right. That's right. You're right. Be mad about it. Fine. Go. Absolutely. Scream. Fine. Go. But there's 29 teams laughing at the Celtics right now going, ha. Yeah, so that's it. All right, let's get to some of the other stuff from this game before we move forward with the games that are coming up. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL season, the regular season done. We're heading into the playoffs. Now you get into the action yourself with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. New customers, you get $150 in bonus bets, guaranteed. All you have to do is put $5 down. You're basically buying for $5, $150 in bonus bets, and maybe you can win that bet and get a little something extra. $150 in bonus bets, win or lose, on an app that is very easy to use. And there's so many different ways to bet. You can do live same game parlays. So stack up bets on things like the points, Tatum's points tomorrow, whatever. So Porzingis rebounds, build your parlay. You can go into the parlay hub and see what the popular parlays are. Maybe you can find one that you want to get in on. You can find new bets on the Explore tab, plenty more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make your first bet a layup. FanDuel is the official partner of the NFL. And I will say you can use their tools to make sure that you are setting your limits, setting your parameters, set your budget, all of that stuff. Protect yourself so you can go ahead and have some fun while gambling responsibly. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Go check out Locked On NBA. I'm back on Locked On NBA since the Celtics don't play on Tuesday for the first time in forever. I will be joined by Jake Madison as usual when I'm on there, talking all kinds of fun things. Draymond Green, plenty to talk about in the NBA. So check out Locked On NBA wherever you get your podcasts. All right, let's get back into this conversation with Tom Westerholm. I didn't talk enough, I think, in yesterday's game was yesterday's podcast was more about all this stuff and Jaylen Brown. I didn't think they used Porzingis enough, and I don't think I gave Drew Holiday enough love for the game that he had. In fact, let me start with Porzingis. I don't think they used Porzingis enough. I think he's such a mismatch, obviously, that sometimes I think they get away with from him too much, and they don't use the mismatch that he is. Part of it is you want them to move the ball, you want them to play that style, but I think playoff basketball, they're gonna have to start playing some playoff style basketball here, and sometimes why not make it a point? Be like, hey, you know what? Third quarter, when things were going south for the Celtics, let's just feed Porzingis. Let's just dump it into Porzingis and start answering their runs rather than trying to play a different. Let's just say, hey, this is our run stopping offense. Let's get it to Porzingis in the post. Let's get some buckets because all you got to do is score here. Let's just get some buckets and not worry about all the other stuff. Their energy is off the charts. Go to Porzingis in that moment.
Yeah, and I mean, I like the kind of slowing it down a little bit, trying to break up that a little bit. I will say, I think the Pacers have one of the few rosters in the NBA with like enough bigs to kind of make they've got a lot of bigs and like a lot of guys who they can kind of throw at him, a lot of different looks they can kind of put together that throw that off a little bit. I did think, I mean, Porzingis, I believe he had 7 assists. He had quite a few really nice passes. So I mean, it's not like he was completely uninvolved. He was kind of moving the ball around, got some of those were 3-pointers, some of those were kind of, roll and kick and really nice looks that way. But I mean, I think you look at him, you look at Holiday, like those guys. I mean, they did play pretty well. I honestly think like this was just one of those games where like the other team scored 133 points. Like there's going to be offensive issues and there's going to be things that you didn't do right, even with Tatum out of the game. But like when the other team scores 133, it's almost it's kind of like, well, you scored 131. The offense was pretty good. There's probably a few things here and there that you could have tweaked, but kind of feels like the game was lost on the other end, I guess.
Yeah, but one thing that I will bring up is Joe Mazzulla. It was funny after the Utah game where Will Hardy was asked about the Celtics defense, and he said, well, the Celtics defense starts with their offense. And Joe Mazzulla damn near had an orgasm on the podium. He's like, oh, that's such a beautiful answer. That's such a great answer. Like, okay, Joe, calm down. And he like the Celtics defense is based off their offense.
That is true.
And they need to yes, they needed to get stops. They needed to match TJ McConnell's energy and all of that stuff. But they also needed to like play the game at their pace. And you can either play, you could match TJ McConnell's energy and play faster, or slow the game down and play at your pace and force them to match yours. They were kind of stuck in between. And it's like they didn't dictate the pace. They didn't match their pace. They just kind of were slow, but not slow with a purpose. They were like, if you want to play slow, that's fine too. Play a half court, run some sets, run some actions where you do get the mismatch and go from there. So that's where your defense floats off your offense, because now you're slowing the game to a pace that you want to play at.
Yeah.
And then you're scoring, which means you get to go back and set your defense, which allows you to play better.
Right. And I think that brings up an important point about this year's Celtics team, which is they have enough talent that if they are intentional, like if they're the ones who are saying we're going to go fast or we're going to go slow, they have so much talent. They're going to beat everybody like almost every night, right? Like they're just, if you can do what you want to do, you're good enough that you're going to win. And I think that's a good point, right? Like if to your point, like that in between game is like, I mean, unless you're doing that on purpose, right? Unless you're trying to put together like a nice mix of the two. But if you're the Celtics, you're good enough that you can run with teams and you can slow teams down. Like Jayson Tatum obviously didn't play last night, but he's killing people in isolation. They have, Kristaps Porzingis can post up, they can go slow, and we've seen how deadly they can be when they run. So it's like if you do what you do on purpose, you're going to be in good shape. And that was, I think, kind of looking back at last night's game, that did seem to be lacking for sure.
Yeah. So that's my bigger thing. Holiday, I just want to give Holiday some love for, bouncing back on offense, just because, he had that one really bad game against the OKC, just a horrible game. And people start getting into like, well, did we really show? Let's revisit the Marcus Smart thing. Is that going the way it should? Like, after the game, after the loss to Indiana, Kristaps Porzingis said Holiday is sacrificing the most, which may be true, but Holiday, to his credit, was like, yeah, I I don't care that I'm sacrificing the most. He basically acknowledged, like, yes, I am, and I don't care. And so,
except for Horford, which he pointed out, is like, except like Horford went to the bench, so it's like, yeah, it's those two, right?
yes, so those two guys have that same kind of like level of sacrifice, and that's great. Like this is what you need. You need somebody to give up something when you've got this much talent together. So just an acknowledgement that he had this great game. He hit one of the most audacious 3-pointers I've seen. That corner three, that step back, was a huge shot. And I'm like, I cannot believe that he took that shot. The stones on him to take that shot was amazing.
It was also the second most audacious shot he took because he attempted a dunk that he had no chance of putting down.
That's right. So crazy confidence, man. That dude is quiet. He's like, if you took Marcus Smart and you turn the emotion down from like 15 to like 5, he's just so even keeled. Which I think, honestly, side note, it's a horrible time to bring this up. Gotta go to break, but that even keeled while still doing a lot of the same stuff is, I think, a big part of why the Celtics are doing what they're doing, because they're not prone to a lot of the emotional swings, which, as much as I love Marcus Smart, sometimes when you ride that roller coaster, it's, you have ups and downs. And one thing that Holiday does not do is ride a roller coaster. So he takes some crazy shots, but he's an incredible defender, but he keeps that, he keeps that on an even level, man. And he said it. He said that exact same thing last night. He's like, my job is to like stay even and get out of the way. And he's doing it. All right. Celtics, a big back-to-back. I don't know how. Well, let's just see. How big is this back-to-back? We'll talk about that in just a second. Today's show is brought to you by our good friends over at BetterHelp, who know that therapy is important. I know that therapy is important. I've gone to therapy. I think it's something that can benefit just about everybody, from working through just some of the daily stress so it doesn't pile up and you don't start taking it out on people, to deeper issues maybe that have been around for a while that you're ready to finally address. Whatever it is, therapy is a great way to do it. And I know that finding a good therapist is extraordinarily difficult because you got to find somebody that's close to you and driving distance that's not going to take you away from work. It's one of the biggest things that takes you away from therapy. Now you have BetterHelp, who is going to make everything convenient. This is designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You fill out a brief questionnaire, you get matched with a licensed therapist, you do it all online, over video or over text or over the phone. You decide. Once you're matched with somebody, if you don't click, you can switch. No charge. It's the most important thing when it comes to therapy. You have to trust your therapist. You have to connect with your therapist. If you don't, it's not going to work. But BetterHelp, make sure that you can, because you can switch at any time with no additional charge. Go to BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. You get 10% off your first month. BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. That's going to get you that 10% off and get you started on a very important journey. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Go check out Locked On Sports Today, the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Forget about those contrived debate shows. We've got actual conversation, meaningful conversation on the biggest stories across the sports landscape every day, all day. So go check it out. Locked On Sports Today, streaming on YouTube. All right, let's get back to this conversation. Tom, Celtics are facing the Minnesota Timberwolves at home Wednesday night and the Milwaukee Bucks on the road on Thursday. This is a very difficult back-to-back, brutal. The games 4 and 5 in 7 nights, and this is they get Minnesota on a back-to-back. Minnesota's in Orlando tonight. So that's good. You get them on a back-to-back. That Orlando to Boston back-to-back, that's tough. That's a long flight to go from, so I remember one of the toughest trips I had was Boston to Miami back-to-back. That one was brutal. But so anyway, so you get Minnesota there, so that's good. Milwaukee's kind of struggling, but this is huge. And,
here's too much information for your listeners. My worst flight was Boston to San Francisco when I had a stomach bug.
Oh, yeah, that is horrible. Well, it sucked for you, but it was probably the worst flight for many of the other people on board as well.
Well, I kept it together, man. I was dying, but I kept it together.
Wow.
Yeah. A little different. All right.
Well, hopefully people aren't made sick by what's coming up against Minnesota and Milwaukee. I think look, the back-to-back part is really big. I think the Celtics have an opportunity there against Minnesota to maybe take advantage of them being a little bit down. Maybe they're catching Milwaukee at the right time because they're struggling. If you can get past this little stretch, then it lightens up a little bit the rest of the way. You still get Denver, Dallas, Miami, the Clippers, Indy again. How about this, though? Side note, I'm jumping all over the place today. They play Indy for the 5th time by the end of January. That's incredible. But anyway, this back-to-back, what are you thinking here?
So many opportunities for Aaron Nesmith to be mad at the Celtics again.
Just to take people out, scratch Porzingis' eye, maybe land on somebody's foot, maybe I don't know, kick somebody in the face. I don't know. Anything is possible with Aaron Nesmith.
Yeah. I think this is an interesting back-to-back. I think it's like, especially you look at where Milwaukee's at right now and just how they've been playing. And, that one, like, I don't know, that you don't want to get too wrapped up in narratives at this stage, right? It's still early enough that you don't want to get too wrapped up in that. But at the same time, Milwaukee's really struggling. They seem really frustrated. And like, you would just kind of hate if you're the Celtics to go in there and like, kind of give them that scheduled win against a rival, right? Like that, like, you kind of want to you want that team you want to kick them while they're down a little bit because, like they're down right now. They just lost to Utah and, the
Rockets
they're going through it. So you would like to continue to make them go through it. So I'm really interested in that game. I think there's a lot that can happen there. I think Minnesota's interesting just because they're so good. And like the first time the Celtics played them, I thought that was the only game so far this season. The Celtics have had a bunch of games, right? They've lost a few, had some close ones. That was the only game where I was like, and not that they can't, but the only game where I was like, how do they beat this team? Like there's every other team that they've played this year. I've been like, okay, this might've gone different. They could try this, they could do this. Minnesota's just got so many good defensive pieces, so much length, so many kind of counters on the defensive end that the Celtics like, and to your point earlier, right? If the Celtics defense starts with their offense and their offense struggles against a defense like Minnesota's, I'm interested to see what they've got. So, I mean, I think it's a really big back-to-back. And I think, no guarantee on either of those wins. And I think that's one of the reasons why you kind of would have really liked to have had the win on Monday so that you're not, looking at this and being like, boy, you'd hate to be on a 3-game losing streak after all the good that you've done so far this season. And not that they're going to, they're capable of beating the Timberwolves. They're certainly capable of beating the Bucks, but I think it's a good test. And I think it's kind of a big one. I'm very curious. I think this is going to be a fun stretch of basketball here.
Yeah. And I don't want to overblow, like say, oh, this is going to tell us a lot about this team. I think we know what this team is.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it goes back to like the motivation. I think the one thing that it will kind of tell us about this team is their ability to kind of put this is the tough part of the schedule. We've talked about that. January, when you are good, is a tough month because you're good. You can beat all of these teams. And so you're like, okay, I'm tired. This is game 4 and 5 of 7 nights. So you just played 3 and 4 nights and you're about to play another 3 and 4 night stretch. This is brutal. Guys are tired. I hate to tell everybody, but I'm sorry. These guys are young and elite athletes. They also get tired. This is going to be tough. But maybe the saving grace is Minnesota comes in having lost to the Knicks, the Pelicans, beat the Rockets, lost to the Mavericks, and now they're playing Orlando the day before. Now, what we're probably going to root for as we're watching this game, the game's over by the time everybody who's going to hear this, but as I'm watching this game, you're probably going to sit there and hope for Orlando just, come on, Paolo Banchero, just go out there and be big and tough and strong and beat the hell out of these guys and make this a hard-fought game that it doesn't matter who wins. It's just make this a tough game where you have to really work hard to get to the end. And to then come in on the back-to-back, the Celtics can take advantage of that. And then you got Milwaukee, whose last few games, you got 2 losses to the Pacers, so Celtics shouldn't feel so bad. They beat the Spurs by 4. They lost to the Rockets, and they lost to the Jazz. So not the best stretch of Bucks basketball right now. And then now they're just waiting for the Celtics. So they have a couple of nights before they face the Celtics, and that's on TNT. So everybody's got to play in that game. So I just feel like this is an opportunity for Boston to take what could be a very difficult back-to-back and maybe squeak by with catching two good teams at a down part of their schedule.
Yeah, that would be the ideal for the Celtics. The other big thing about the Bucks game, right, is you looking at tiebreaker scenarios. It's never too early to start looking at that stuff.
Sure.
So, yeah, no, big games. I think to your point, right, it's less about I want to see what this tells me about the Celtics. Again, you're right. We know what this team is, and they're really good. Well, it's more about just you lose 2 games here, and right now you've got this really nice 3.5 game lead. You're just cruising along, and you lose a couple games here, and that starts to tighten up a little bit, especially since one of those games would be to a team that's toward the top with you. So, yeah, more about the actual implications than the what does it tell us implications.
Right. So Minnesota, Milwaukee, nothing on Friday. Houston on Saturday, then Toronto. This is like every other day. A road back-to-back Houston, Dallas, which is not so bad. They finally get 2 days off on the 23rd and the 24th. Finally. And then at the end of the month, they get 3 home games that start a 7-game homestand. So that gets us pretty close to the All-Star break. So things will start to loosen up a little bit. Hopefully this back-to-back, the Celtics can come out on top. And then that Houston game on Saturday with Ime coming back is going to be super interesting. I don't even know what to make of that game. But I will be here. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate you hopping on.
Appreciate you, man.
As always. I will be here for all of that. I will be here. Hey, I get to take Friday off from podcasting. Yay. But I will be here Saturday night. I will be here every time they play. So next Friday when they play Denver, I will podcast. A week from Saturday when they play, or 2 weeks from Saturday when they play the Clippers, I will be here to podcast. So plenty of action here covered entirely on the Locked On Celtics podcast. So make sure you are subscribed wherever you get your podcast. If you're a new listener, go ahead and subscribe. If you are a regular listener, one of my everydayers, I love you. Thank you so much. Come say hi if you're at the game, section 19, right by the players tunnel. So find the Celtics bench, find the players tunnel. You'll find me right next to that. Come say hi. I would also love it if you share the podcast, you spread the word, tell everybody they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast right here in the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.